there's this huge narrative, largely using this study as backing, that essentially any company using AI in their applicant tracking system is automatically disadvantaging your resume for X, Y, or Z. That's like the very, very, very high level. The reality is,
Emily Durham, better known as Emily the Recruiter. She's known to 3 million plus people as Emily the Recruiter. And she was a corporate recruiter turned content creator turned best-selling author of the new book, which is called Clock In, same name as her podcast. And we're going to talk all about the really wonderful hot trash job market that we're seeing today. Emily's specialty is like really just real talk kind of career advice and the I would say probably like the anti-girl boss mentality and just like really giving you the tough love about what's going on. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so stinking excited to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And I want to kick off with a very, very cool thing that you recently did that I think is going to cut so deep for so many of the people in my audience. You decided recently on social media that you were going to run this experiment. And the experiment was essentially you were going to create the perfect candidate on paper and on LinkedIn and see what happened. Tell us what did you find out about the state of 2026 with this experiment?
You know, things are bad when I'm having to become like the mad scientist and just figuring out what the hell is going on. So I decided a few weeks back to create an entirely made up LinkedIn profile and resume. And when I tell you made up, I'm talking like this is a perfectly crafted, the experience couldn't be better type of candidate. I was even like customizing the application for every single role that I applied to.
Damn.
And essentially, the goal was to see if just applying is enough these days. And if so, do different platforms behave differently than others? So my wonderful gal, her name is Stephanie, my made up girl. Don't waste your time looking her up on LinkedIn because spoiler alert, she's been reported, but we will get there. It got a little salacious. So essentially, I decided to apply to 40 positions on a variety of different job platforms, everything from direct on the company's job application to Indeed, as well as LinkedIn, and just saw what happened. The crazy thing was within the first 30 seconds of applying, I did get several automatic declines, which my suspicion is actually because I was applying to jobs where I met all of the qualifications, but I actually intentionally answered some of the pre-qualifying questions slightly off from what they were looking for. So if the salary band was like $60,000 to $70,000, I put 72. Get an instant decline from companies like that. So there were some interesting learnings, one of which being those pre-qualifier questions, you kind of got to lie your way through because those are those automatic disqualifiers more than any other AI screening. But what was really interesting was the lack of responses. So within the first 2 weeks, I had only received between, I think, 6 and 8 responses from companies. And most of those were actually declines. Keep in mind, this is like a suspiciously perfect profile. So if this is what she's getting, girl, what's happening for the rest of us?
We're in big trouble.
We're in big trouble. So as time passed, a couple of really interesting kind of learnings popped out from this. I actually did get a really decent response rate from one platform and a really crummy response rate from another. On LinkedIn, I heard back from a total of 0 companies. Not one company. Now, I did end up I got a couple declines, which is fine. I take that as a win. There's nothing wrong with, at least if I know where I'm at in the process, that's fine. So I did get a couple of declines from LinkedIn, but majority of them I did not hear back from. And I will never know if I heard back because I believe someone either reported the profile or perhaps, a recruiter from a company was like, oh, I think I've seen this viral post. Let's report this account. So my girl, Stephanie, rest in paradise.
Found out, huh? Spotted.
She got. It got real sad for her. But I will focus on a couple of the positives. I had a 44% response rate on Indeed within the first 2.5 weeks of applying for jobs. And we're not talking like lifetime. That's 2.5 weeks. That's pretty quick. The recruitment cycle can naturally take longer than that. And all of the interview invitations that I got were from Indeed. And this entire experiment is not sponsored in any capacity. But I did find a very, very stark difference between Indeed and other job application platforms in the responses. But the TLDR is I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of fake job postings on certain sites.
So many of those.
And a lot of ghosting, like a shit ton of ghosting. Damn. Isn't that
That is
crazy?
wild. That is wild. I mean, I know ghost jobs are just an absolutely massive problem. I know that there are states like New York who actually have some initiatives that are sitting to be signed on their governor's desks about eradicating ghost jobs and making there be penalties to companies who actually put them out there into the ether. And in some cases, I would imagine even just like data farm this stuff, like which is so gross and so awful. But the fact that you didn't, I mean, the LinkedIn versus Indeed sort of aspect to this is really striking. Like I'm kind of shook from that.
So am I. And I will say, like, this is a 40 job sample over the course of an isolated period in one city. There are a lot of variables, and I've actually had great success with LinkedIn in my own career. So it's not, I try to think of it as it's not actually as much of a reflection on the platforms themselves as it is the jobs. So it really is about the company, whether it's LinkedIn or Indeed or, you know, I was going to say Workopolis. What year is it? Good God. Like, hello? That's terrifying. But it really is more about the company that you're applying to. But I will say, like, there were some product benefits on the Indeed side, including you get a page where you see the step status of each of the jobs you've applied to in one place, including application reviewed, moving to next steps. You don't get that on other platforms. So there were some other things where I was like, okay, I see the use case. It was pretty harrowing. It was a pretty harrowing experience. So I would say like the takeaway shouldn't be, oh, we're screwed. The takeaway is we have to be super strategic with the companies we are applying to. And this just reconfirmed what many of us know. It's applying and networking, not one or the other. And as long as you know that, that's okay.
Right? It's just a different ballgame now. It's always, and I feel like it's always been networking is the way to go. Like I think about my career history in corporate, and almost every single job I got was through some sort of connection, whether that was me finding a job I was interested in online and being like, let me sleuth here. Let me figure out who I know who knows someone else, and like maybe kind of like back into who the hiring manager was, right? And then get the intro. Like that worked so much more frequently than just like a blind application into the void, right? So that totally strikes true for me. But the other aspect of what you did that I really want to dig into is like the concept of the perfect candidate. Like you have sat on the other side of the table, so you have a sense of like who is going to make it through these various levels of interviewing and actually secure the job at the end of the day. So talk to us about like, how did you come up with the concept of the perfect candidate?
Oh my gosh. And what a thought this is. It felt like plastic surgery, but for careers. It was kind of so nuts, right? Like it was just funky and freaky and weird. So I think my big thing is like, I wasn't going to spend 100 hours customizing every single piece of this person or having 6 different LinkedIn profiles. So what I did is what I recommend people do at home in their job search. Look at the types of jobs you're applying to and really look at that job description. What are the requirements they are actually looking for? And the ones that are consistent themes across all of the jobs that you're targeting, those are the things that need to show up on your resume and on your LinkedIn. So that's really where I came up with the bones of this. I knew Stephanie was, may she rest, like a mid-level marketing analyst. She needed to be great with data, great on the creative side, and have a little bit of out-of-home and digital marketing campaign management, because that's what came up in her job descriptions. So that's where I kind of reverse engineered the resume to make sure all of those keywords were there. So if you're listening to this thinking, how the hell do I do this for myself? What's the dream job? Okay, let's look at that job description. What are the requirements for that position? And how do you make sure you're showcasing clearly examples of how you have that? And so that was really like the work back plan. And some of the other things I did were like entirely unethical. I got like a stock image of a person and put that, like it got freaky. And one of the big comments that I got from people was, okay, well, we made Stephanie a white woman. How do the results vary if she's not white? How do the results vary if she's a man? Like, yeah. So there's all of these different layers that we'll definitely be running more experiments on.
Yes.
But it was fascinating.
I can only imagine. And yes, I would be super keen to hear, you know, how do these other sort of perfect candidates fare in this sort of a similar process that you're doing, right? Because you're really learning from the job descriptions themselves, which is, I think, always the best way to back into how do you present yourself in the best light. Like it's pretty much like just common sense and basic, right? It's like, how do you look through all this, parse what is important to this company, and then take whatever it is you've done and speak about what you can bring to the company, right? So that all totally tracks for me. And I wonder too, because I mean, obviously the people that we speak to in this audience particularly are usually mid to late career, and many of them are actually over the ripe old age of 40, which in the United States of America is a protected class, meaning we are, quote, older workers. So yeah, millennials, I'm talking to you. I know it's like very strange to consider ourselves as older, but we are, in the eyes of the law, older. So I wonder also what it would look like if you were to shift the years of experience with this candidate, and whether there would be a difference between the younger Stephanie and the over 40 Stephanie on that alone, right? If it's the graduation date that just kind of like gives it away, because most college graduates are probably like what, average 22, 23, something like that.
100%. And then you also wonder, with that additional experience that folks who are over 40 have, does the compensation change with it? Because here's what I will say. The salary ranges I saw were messed up. I was looking at jobs requesting, and this is like breaking news, the sky is blue, but jobs that were looking at, 7, 8, 9 years of experience. Why was the base salary $51,000 in a city? I based it out of where I am, which is Toronto, where average cost of living is $90K and above.
Yep.
Make that make sense. That's interesting.
Sense. Yeah. And I think there's absolutely that sort of bias, or even the assumption of like, oh, you're older and more experienced, you're probably going to cost more. Well, yeah, you freaking deserve it. But there's not that sort of math being done on the other side of the table often, right? And they have the amount of budget that they have available. And I imagine, and in fact, you should tell us this, like when you're on the other side of the table as a recruiter, like there's so many things that you're privy to. You understand sort of the process for what it is and the type of candidate who's going to sail through versus who isn't. Like, what are the some of the things that happen on that other side of the table that we might not be thinking about in the right way? And how can we tweak the way we approach job searching to make it more likely that we actually, A, get an at-bat and get our foot in the door enough for at least the initial interview, and B, make it all the way through to the offer point?
Oh, what a good question. I would say the first thing is actually a mindset adjustment. Recruiters are experts in recruiting. I recruited for executive level finance all the way to entry level software engineering. None of those jobs are jobs I have personally occupied. So how a recruiter is assessing your resume and your interview is either based off of what they've done on their own research, off of the job description, or off of what the manager has told them. So what that means for how you write your resume and how you show up in interviews is focus less on the technical and more on being a great storyteller. So even if your role is highly technical, coming in and saying, oh, the ABCD for the EFG was blah, 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 blah. That might not mean anything to someone who hasn't done that work. But if you focus on telling a story, my team identified a problem where our revenue was below, 30% of blah, 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 blah. In order to break even, we needed to blah, 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 blah. And you tell a story instead of just telling the data. That is a huge one. So I definitely think building your storytelling ability is one of the most valuable things you can do for your career. Other things are recruiters don't really read resumes, they scan them. Even in the age of AI, there's this huge myth that AI is now like automatically throwing out your resumes. The companies that have been doing that are in the middle of a Workday lawsuit. So a lot of the reputable organizations that we want to work at are using AI to help rank or summarize candidate profiles, but a real person is still reviewing them. That's why the networking is so big, because nothing really guarantees that your profile gets opened. So networking is another big tip. Keeping that resume super crisp and easy to scan, meaning it's written clearly, it's written for language of someone who maybe doesn't do what you do, it's loaded with great data and juicy numbers. Those are things that can help you move forward in the process. But if I had to synthesize it down to a couple of big tips, how you write and how you talk about your career needs to be simple enough for people who don't know what you do to clearly understand your value. Networking's got to be an automatic part of how you get recognized and how you get noticed. And the other thing that I would argue is your application matters a lot less than who you know overall. So if you're going to spend 10 hours a week job hunting, let's make one of those on updating your resume, 3 of those on applying for jobs. The rest is about working the room. And that's really the split that gets people moving in 2026.
Wait, Emily, are you telling me that it's not a meritocracy? Are you, what?
And if it were,
breaking news.
we would be looking at 2 very wealthy multi-billionaires. You and I would be running Elon into the ground, I tell you.
So
into the
damn
ground.
True. Man, if only we had
is,
fewer ethics too, right?
Right? And then we'd lose, we'd lose all of our spark. It would be great.
It's true.
But I just think like so many of us have been conditioned that like we need to apply for the right number of jobs. And especially as we hit our 40s and above, we're like, well, if they don't want me, we're not going to hear back. Like, I'm just going to, wait to see if I hear back. I think especially for women, we're so conditioned to think that our value disappears the second we turn even 30, right? That sense of the female invisibility curse. And I think it's insane. And I think the best thing we can do is give ourselves permission to practice for the job market today, not the job market we experienced before, because you deserve it. You're listening to this, you're investing in yourself, you deserve it.
100%. And your worth is not defined by your job title or where you work or any of that. And that's something I've had to unlearn and has been a super painful process for me as I've gone from corporate to corporate dropout. And that has been like the most vulnerable, the most like shame spiral inducing thing of my life. And I'm still working through it. So I know a lot of people are going to find themselves in what I call the involuntary entrepreneur era, where a lot of people, millennials, Gen X and beyond, we're all just going to have to figure this out on our own outside of corporate. And it's not something that I ever envisioned for myself. And I wonder, like, tell me, you're younger than I am. I'm 43. I'm wondering, like, at what point you were like, you know what? I want to try this thing outside of corporate on my own. Like, tell that story, because that has been for me, just that shift has been so monumental. And it's been something that I've really had to work through. Like, honestly, it's been extremely difficult. So I'd love to hear yours, because you've come out on the other side and you had a wonderful corporate career. And here you are building something on your own in your 30s. Like, this is so cool. And I think quite a few of us are going to be doing something similar, and hopefully we'll have the same degree of success.
Oh, thank you. Oh, another incredible question. And I think the rise of the portfolio career, where more and more people, either by financial need or the lack of security in the traditional careers we know, have to pick up a side hustle. And I love the concept that you have of this like accidental entrepreneurship, where it's like, well, I guess I'm doing this. Like the lights got to stay on.
Wasn't the plan.
Yeah. And it never freaking is. And I think, I was raised being told that, it takes a certain kind of person to be an entrepreneur, and it takes a certain kind of person to work in a certain industry. And I think to an extent, maybe that's true. But I think the bigger part of it is so many of us have been told that like certain personal qualities give us access to work, when the reality is like work and who you are as a person is allowed to be separate sometimes, and it's allowed to be connected sometimes. So I had always been raised thinking, God, I'm way too risk averse to be an entrepreneur. There's no way. I'm a highly anxious girl. There's no universe. A hate comment on TikTok, like I'm going to be out of work for a week.
Yes.
It was not good for me.
In therapy, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and like, girl, if my therapist is listening, love you, doc.
God bless.
But truly, like I had started working, in recruitment from even before when I had graduated university. I loved recruiting. I loved the sales element of it. I loved connecting with people. It was just an amazing time and felt so fulfilling. But as my career started to grow, I realized I was really fucking good. I was like, oh my God, like I was just seeing things some other people weren't seeing. And I was just having so much fun that experimenting with it came really naturally. So I was able to get my foot into doors really, really young that otherwise I wouldn't have been in. And I was, 21 sitting in executive recruitment teams being like, holy shit, is this how this works? Like, is this how these people talk? And I would come home and be like, oh my God, like, people need to know this. Like, this is crazy. So I had started posting these pieces of advice online that very much were just coming from a place of, hey, if you want to get paid more, this is kind of what they're saying behind closed doors.
Dude, you're doing the Lord's work, man. That's amazing.
It was so fun. Like
inside of you.
But to your point, like it never once felt like a career. It just felt like this fun little thing that kept happening. And I had grown really quickly online, and it didn't really stop. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to kind of upkeep this. And I balanced the social media work with my corporate job for almost 5 years. And there just hit a wall where I was like, one of these two things is going to have to give. And I don't want to fail at either, because I equally loved them. But I knew that writing a book was something incredibly important for me in my career. And the opportunity came up, and that was really the catalyst to say, okay, if I have to make a bet, it's going to be on me. And what's given me comfort is nothing in life is permanent. And
oh my God,
let's say I do this and I shit the bed. Okay. I will go
You'll
get
survive.
another recruiting job. And
Yes.
I equally love recruiting. And let's say I shit the bed. I would rather be embarrassed that I failed than be embarrassed that I was too chicken shit to figure it out and give it a go. And
That
that
is
was kind
literally
of
why I
what kept
started
me
mine.
going.
Yep.
And it took probably, I'm on almost year 3 now. Am I year 3? I think I'm in year 3 of doing this full
What is
time.
time? Yeah.
Like, what is time?
Honestly.
It took a full year before I realized, oh, this is viable and everything's okay.
Yeah.
But I will say, I didn't leave until I had lots of data to prove this was going to be sustainable.
So smart.
Yeah, you don't need to be the kind, there's no such thing as, oh, you're the kind of person to be an entrepreneur. You're the kind of person, you're the kind of person you decide to be. And that's allowed to change 100 times over, girl. So do not pigeonhole yourself.
I love that so much. And I think that a lot of people are going to be going through this transformation where they have to envision themselves in a way that they never really planned, right? That things just didn't really work out the way they had imagined they would, right? Like a lot of people are in that place in my audience and they're writing me and they're saying, I don't know what to do. I've been out of work for this many months or even in some cases years, or I really can't even get through this like first level of getting into an interview. Like I'm getting screened out, this sort of stuff. And they're starting to wake up to the realization that we maybe should have been looking at our careers more like we look at our stock portfolios, in that we should not have all the risk in one basket, right? Like we got to spread that out. And so it's been interesting to see people start kind of dabbling, right? And it might be, oh, I'm going to start a podcast like I did in my case, which, by the way, was supposed to be a side hustle funded by my full-time job. But I started a podcast about corporate ageism in a company with like 2 people over the age of 40. And they laid me off in a layoff of 1 exactly a month later. So, that was like, this is a little dicey. I'm not talking about this company, but they clearly didn't like it. I mean, I was a brand new employee.
I mean, if the shoe fits.
Right. I was like, oh, okay, well,
if you're offended, don't do something offensive. That's what I'll say.
Right, exactly. I'm with you there. But I was like, man, you guys could actually look really good. Like, oh, we're the people who employ this, old broad, right? Like, we're the ones, we're not part of the problem. But instead they were like, ooh, red flag, get her out of here. Anyway, but it was supposed to be a side hustle. And then I was like, oh, I guess this is something I'm going all in on now. And I knew I had other opportunities to get back into corporate, but I could see the writing on the wall for how difficult it was going to be for me to continue having a tech career every year I went on, which is why I was like, I'm gonna double down on talking about this, and hopefully we'll get some real change in the works and start with awareness, right? And then move into like, what are the solutions here? But so it became my full-time thing at that point. I have the ability to do that. But like, I'm seeing people who are recognizing I might need to be like a consultant or do something, fractional. And so they're starting to wake up to this. And with that comes the necessity of being visible. And that part, when you haven't been visible, when it's not in your nature to be visible, that is excruciating. And even for me, because I was being visible for myself, right, as my own brand, if you will, versus like talking about my company or something like that, which was much safer, or talking about the podcast for the podcast's sake instead of my, personal platform, if you will. Like that was the most vulnerable thing ever. And I know so many people are starting to be like, wait, I have to actually like put on my LinkedIn that I'm a consultant, or wait, I have to actually like tell people I'm starting a business. Like it feels so big and so scary because there is no guarantee that you will be successful. But I think what people need to do is look at it the way you looked at it, which is essentially like, if I don't do this, if I'm too chicken shit to show up and do this thing and go for what I want, like that is worse than doing it and catastrophically failing. Because the other thing is no one's thinking about you the way you're thinking about you. No one gives a fuck. Like,
no one cares.
They don't care.
The world is on fire. Like everyone, like put that on a freaking t-shirt. No one cares.
Yep.
But I totally hear you. Like the fear of being seen trying, and God forbid being seen failing. I always try to anchor myself in the people I respect the most in work and in career. And most of those success stories started from multiple failed businesses, multiple failed corporate careers. Like, so I think especially in the age of social media, you have to remember all we do see is that career highlight reel.
100%.
And that's okay. And I also think you don't have to go from 0 to 6,000. You don't have to go from, okay, I'm going to start a business to I'm going to be posting talking head videos on LinkedIn.
God.
Why don't you start quietly? Just post an
Yeah.
ad on Fiverr or on
Yep.
Upwork of your experiences. Maybe you start even smaller
Baby
and just go to
steps.
friends and family. Like you're
Exactly.
allowed to baby steps your way in. And
So
guess what?
agree.
It's your career. You don't
Yep.
need to do, YouTube. You don't need to do Instagram. Like people that are like, oh my God, if I'm going to start a business, I have to be posting on social media. No, you don't.
I agree with you.
Does it help? Of course. But
Yeah.
that's not the only way. Like there's always another way. And
Totally.
I think, it's really easy to get in the loop of, oh God, I'm going to have to post 6 times a day and blah, blah, blah. Unfollow the business coaches telling you that you have to do it this way
Yes.
or do it that way. There's no way. There's no one way. You have to do it in a way that's sustainable and doesn't make you feel like shit. That's the only rule.
So agree. That is excellent advice. It really, really is. And I hope a lot of people will think about that because you do not have to go launch, right? You don't have to go super public. In my case, because I was doing a podcast, I felt like I had to. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I could have just thrown it on Apple and seen what happened. But it really almost stopped me from starting altogether. Was that just like feeling like I had to do something publicly? And if you're not doing something that's audience building, like especially, you don't have to do it that way. You can be a consultant through behind the scenes, much in the way you would network to get a corporate job. You can do the same thing to get your clients, right? So I think that is excellent, excellent advice. Excellent
and we all
advice.
have a built-in network, right? Like
We
I always
do.
say, whether it's job hunting or starting a business, the first career coaching client I had is because I posted to like my personal Facebook page. It was like him doing resume reviews. I had 3 people from high school reach out. They're like, oh my God, yeah, I'd love your eyes on it. And and then one had a great experience, referred her friend. Like it really just takes one person. And honestly, depending on where your audience lives, your Facebook, people use Facebook Marketplace for freaking everything. Post your services on Facebook Marketplace. Someone in your community who you can vet as a nice, normal person will probably see your post.
That's clutch. I've not done that. I've not
it's
even
fabulous.
thought. I'm like, wow, that's really good. That's really,
I love Facebook.
really
Facebook
good.
Marketplace. For that and some good furniture shopping.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen like furniture flipping happen on Facebook Marketplace and some things like that, but I have not thought of it for this, but thank you. That's another pro tip. We haven't even really completely gotten into AI yet, and I wanna. And you brought it up. It was tangentially mentioned as you were giving one of your awesome answers. But there was this study that came out it was a Stanford research study, and it came out like a month ago maybe, and it went freaking bonkers viral. And the suggestion was made that basically these companies have this like AI tool that they use to look at resumes that box you out. But I read the study and I was like, that's not what the study says. And yet that's what's getting traction. So maybe share a little what you know to be true when it comes to AI in the recruiting process, because a lot of people in my audience are like sending me DMs talking about this. And I'm like, that's actually not true.
Oh my gosh. There's so much information on TikTok about AI and how employers are doing X, Y, and Z. And information is really powerful until it's really overwhelming. And I think when we're sharing information that isn't accurate, we're doing so much more harm than good. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, AI is the perfect solution to everything. Of course the hell it isn't. But I'm also not going to sit here and co-sign information that's straight up not accurate. So, it nods to this study, but it nods to other things as well, that there's this huge narrative largely using this study as backing, that essentially any company using AI in their applicant tracking system is automatically disadvantaging your resume for X, Y, or Z. That's like the very, very, very high level. The reality is the study didn't actually say that if you're applying to a tool that is using an AI layer to it, that your resume is going to get kicked out, or that they're scoring your resume, or that certain features are going to bump you out here or there. That study, from what I took from it, was actually looking at gamified evaluations, which, by the way, has always been a shitty job practice. So basically, if you're listening to this thinking, what the hell does that mean? It means after you applied to the job, they'd be like, hey, complete this fun little personality quiz. Complete this, how many trucks go in this bucket? And based on how you used that tool, AI would evaluate how you think about the given thing. That's where the bias came in. To which I say, yeah, fucking of course. Those were stupid before AI. Of course those were stupid. So a lot of people were like taking this, screaming from the mountaintops. I'm like, this is not what the study said. What I do think we need to look at is a very real study, a very real lawsuit happening with Workday that's showing that folks who identify as having disabilities, veterans, pregnant folks, and I believe it also extended into race and gender, were systemically disadvantaged while using Workday's AI tools within the applicant tracking system.
Over 40s too.
Yeah, like huge.
It's a lot.
That is a very real class action that did not get dismissed in the state of California as of 1 month ago. That's something I think we wait and see. But the Stanford study, that just ain't it. So as far as how AI is actually being used, there's really 3 buckets I see this in. You've got traditional slow companies. Think banking, think government, think some education organizations that are using AI, if at all, to help rank candidates in the applicant tracking system. Susie meets more keywords. She's at the top of the pile. That's been happening for a long time. That's really not changing much. You've got category number 2. Think of like your tech, your consulting companies that are using AI to create smart summaries of your profile. Susie's profile has 10 years of experience in marketing, blah, 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 blah. That's great because it's summarizing your work, but the risk is what if it's missing certain things or inaccurately summarizing your work? So that second tier that's just one example, but using AI to help make the lift a little bit lighter, but not automatically getting rid of your application. So a human is still a part of the process, although imperfect. And the third is some of these outlier companies, think the early stage tech startups that are doing like hardcore avatar interviews. Those are people we strategically ignore. We know we're going to land somewhere in the middle in the next couple of years. So if you're hearing someone telling you to AI proof your resume, AI proof this, that is entirely impossible because every company has a different way of leveraging AI. All you can control right now is one really good resume and getting your face in front of another human face. That is the only controllable we have until we know what the new norm is. And there will be a new norm. We're a couple years out, and that's just the truth.
Yeah, we're just kind of, things are moving so quickly. And I think taking a page out of Silicon Valley's book in the way in which we view ourselves as, new entrepreneurs, in which case that happens, like the fail fast, like MVP stuff, like that's good. But in this situation, we have like a lot of repercussions happening with the speed with which all of this is happening. But like you said, like pause, take a beat, like this is all going to get sorted. And I guess looking at AI from the other perspective, like if you're a candidate, you're applying for a job and you want to show, let's be honest, AI is problematic. We have AI that's being told to us to be inevitable, quote unquote, by the very people it would make trillionaires if it were inevitable, right? We have an arms race that's happening. We also have a situation where it's like, you can't say, I won't use AI. You can't say, oh, I don't touch that. You have to at least have the optics of being at least somewhat familiar with AI if you want to be a serious candidate. That's what I think. I'd love your perspective on that.
I'm on the same page as you. I have so many mixed feelings from an ethical perspective. It is so complicated. And I think it's an incredibly nuanced conversation that I don't know if there's a lot of nuanced conversation about it online.
Sadly, no.
There's not.
Sadly, no. She's very pro or very anti. And I'm like,
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm somewhere floating between the two, depending on the topic and depending on the day. The reality is AI poses a considerable risk to protected spaces like the arts, like mental health, like children's welfare.
Like humanity even.
Humanity, one might say.
Yeah.
To the environment. The environmental implications alone are absolutely harrowing. So you've got this like ethical doom and gloom, this whole push for it's coming whether you like it or not. And then you've got this other side where it's like, well, I'm just going to refuse to use AI. And that would be the same as saying I refuse to use the internet, 20, 30 years ago. That is, whether it is ethical or not, the truth is this is a requirement of work. I've seen employers, not AI first employers, not tech companies. I've personally spoken to employers who are not tech companies saying that AI proficiency is how they're evaluating even their non-technical hires. This is a real measure of work. Now, does this mean you need to be Miss AI? I love AI. No. You just need to make sure you find out what those quotas are and you find a way, to your point, to optically play that game. But I do think there is a fine balance to be had about we don't need to accept that anything is permanent and forced upon us in our lives overall. in the context of work, my job is to help you protect your paycheck. And as it stands today, if you do a full stop, I won't use AI, I promise you your employer will get rid of you in the next 12 to 16 months. And I hate that that is the reality of the situation.
But we are where we are. And I mean, a lot of what I know you do and I know I try to do as well is just like real talk. This is how the world is. I might not like it. You might not like it, but here we are. And we're going to do what we can, right? To put our best foot forward and to have the best possible career we can with the most stability, security, growth, fulfillment, all the things that we want, right? But it's a non-starter and you have to know that going into these things.
Yeah.
And like you said, you don't have to be Miss AI. You don't have to be out there, touting how wonderful it is, but you do have to at least have some familiarity with it. And you'd be wise to come to the table with some sort of examples about how you have leveraged AI, even if it's not in your job, even if it's in your personal life, right? And you want to say like, oh, I'm familiar with it from XYZ standpoint. Come with a story. To your point earlier about being a better storyteller, have a story about AI, right?
100%. And I think the other thing that most people don't know is companies' expectations when they're doing your performance reviews today look at your efficiency more than they ever have. As companies have started to pay for these licenses, whether it's Copilot, Claude, et cetera, they have purchased those with the expectation of X number of time savings, which directly translates to cost savings. For each of their employees, you will be asked, okay, how many hours are you spending on reporting now that this tool exists? Those are going to be real measures of your success. And, you need to be prepared to say, here's how I'm saving time writing my performance review. Because as companies invest more in AI, they're expecting more output. That's just the reality of where things are at. So you need to find a way to balance optimizing for the work that you do so that you're still protecting your job enough to say, okay, I freed up time with the nonsense with AI that I was able to solve this new problem, attract this new client, whatever it might be. But it's a complicated situation. But I'll be honest, like I think of how much Copilot that's my tool of choice, how much Copilot can support, especially people mid-career, late career who are navigating having to leverage new technology. Suddenly we're having to do some crazy shit in Excel because we're all supposed to know how to do this,
Right.
apparently. Like you now have support where you can ask questions without judgment in the context of work. And
so well put.
In all of that murkiness, I do see that as a silver lining in the context of work specifically.
Beautiful. So in doing this podcast, I've learned quite a bit about what biases there are in the workplace. I always knew some of them already, but the ageism one was something that really blew my mind because there was a Lean In and McKinsey study that came out in 2025 that showed that actually young women report ageism at a higher rate than older women. And I was like, how is that? Like it blew my mind. And then I started thinking about my own career. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess there were times when I tried to make myself look, quote, more professional by looking like old. Like the idea was to look older and like more as though I were experienced and knew what I was talking about. So that people wouldn't undervalue what I was saying or think that I was, not worth my seat at the table, so to speak. And so I wanted to ask you, you've been on the other side of the table. You have interviewed people who are a range of ages, and you have also yourself been a young woman in a corporate environment. What did you see from both of those angles?
Oh my gosh. It's to be a woman. Like if only it's like they want to just like freeze us in time at 32.
Yeah.
It's nuts. You know what? There's two specific examples I think of whenever I talk about this that bring me to a rage state. One of which this was early in my career. Like I'm talking, I might have been 19 or 20. I was an admin. So I was still working in recruiting, but I was scheduling interviews. This was like my first big kid job. I'm sitting there typing. I'm overhearing a recruiter get on the call to extend an offer. Now, this recruiter did executive. So whenever she picked up the call, I was like, I got to listen because these are big boy, offers going out. And I'm like, I got to know, like, what are we making as a CFO? So she picks up the phone and it's with the hiring manager. And she goes, hey, I'm about to go extend the offer to so-and-so. This is the number I'm thinking. What do you think? He goes, yeah. Sounds good. And he goes, you know what? Her interview was so good. I want to extend the offer to her. And she's like, what a sweet, high touch offer. And this was a good recruiter, mind you. Like that, she was like, you know what? Love that. You tell her, let her know an offer is coming, but you give her the good news. And again, senior position, you're getting that C-suite phone call. That feels pretty good. 30 minutes pass, she gets a phone call and it's from the manager. And he goes, I couldn't give her the offer. And she goes, well, what the fuck? What do you mean you couldn't give her the offer? And apparently on the phone, he goes, When I called her, I heard a baby crying in the background, and I just get the sense she's pretty distracted.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Whoa.
Yep.
Holy shit.
And she was like, so you can't do that. Gave him
oh my God,
a corporate emotional beating. Like this woman,
well deserved.
A tongue of leather. Like she was sharp. She was going. She was like, and here's why that's illegal and completely inappropriate. He's like, well, it is what it is. She goes, okay, well, I'm going to go to HR. Now, I never heard an update, but that man still works there to this day.
Damn it. This happens way too much. Yeah.
Way too much. So there's that one. I think of that. And then I also think of a particular experience more aligned with agency. I was working with a recruitment agency at the time, and, they were looking to hire I won't call it the position, but it's a position traditionally occupied by a younger woman. It's a bit more of a like events heavy. You're in the field, you're out there. It's something you would traditionally associate with someone in their early 20s because it's like a non-traditional hours, you're working outside kind of a shtick. We got, when I tell you, the perfect frigging candidate. This woman had all the experience. My phone call with her, she's a firecracker. She was perfect for this job. Obviously, I don't know her age, but based on her experience, she had at least 25 years of experience. She was, and when I say this, I don't say it lightly, fantastic. She was fantastic. Present her to the agency I'm working with. Agency goes, not quite what we're looking for, no fresh perspectives. And I asked, I was like, well, what fresh perspectives based on my interview notes am I missing? Like, did she offer advice or answers that I wouldn't know? I don't work in her field. They said, no, her answers were good, but I just get the sense her perspective isn't going to be fresh. And lots of fighting, lots of HR cases, coded. She got the job and she was effing incredible. Of course she was.
I'm so glad.
But
happy ending.
It's all of these like coded languages that the first time you hear it, maybe it doesn't register, but the second time you hear it, it really sits with you. And even working in HR, hearing how normal these conversations were, even among some of these like quote unquote progressive leadership teams, was pretty fucked up. And even as a younger woman, like when I worked in sales and trading and capital markets, like I was called honey by one of my hiring managers. He did not know my name. Like it was like, well, it is what it is. This is the cost of working on the trade floor, the stock floor. So there's this notion that it's somehow gone away because it's gotten better. And I would say it hasn't gotten that much better. It's just gotten different. And I think for women, there's this notion that as technology changes, the second you turn 40, your ideas are somehow stale and you have to work 6 times harder to prove that you're ahead of the curve. And for younger women, you're having to fight the bimbification of being a woman, which is you can't be bubbly and pretty. No, God forbid.
God help you. God help you. Or you'll be called a booth babe. I remember I was called a booth babe at a conference, and I was just like, seriously, man? Are you serious right now?
If only you could, I wish I could take a photo of these people, and you want to talk about things I want to post on Facebook. Fucking nuts. So in my personal experience, I was lucky that I truly, I was lucky I had leaders that really advocated for me. I remember my manager had heard this particular man I worked with call me honey, and she snapped her neck. And if she could have killed him, she would have. I had leaders that I'm very lucky advocated for me, but because I had leaders that advocated for me, it became very easy and quick to see the leaders that weren't. And the reality was I got really lucky with a couple of fabulous managers, and that was not the case for most people. And I think the big thing for me is find your community wherever you work, whether that's joining an employee resource group internally, having that work confidant, having a mentor outside of the company, to really validate your experience and give you the confidence to say, hey, that doesn't work for me, is enough. And I think as a society, we're not comfortable threatening legal action enough.
Sorry, that was so
bring back a fucking lawyer.
Delivered.
Bring back a lawyer. I had a girl in my DMs today. Literally, I just posted a video about this. She messaged me and she's like, SOS, I need help. She just told her boss that she's pregnant. Her boss's response was this planned? Because essentially implying this wasn't convenient for him.
Oh.
And I was like, this is illegal. Lawyer the fuck up. So it's a long-winded answer for we need to get really entrenched in our communities to give us the confidence to recognize we don't deserve this treatment.
Right.
learn how to advocate for ourselves in those small ways and in those times where we can't, lawyer the fuck up.
Lawyer the fuck
bring
up.
back getting a lawyer.
Bring back lawyers. I love that perspective. I'll also say one of my hypotheses about why work is so ageist, why corporate has ageism running through it like crazy, is that they know that younger people early in their career don't necessarily know what's cool and what's not, what's normal, what's legal and what's not. And as you get older, you learn these things. And so they have a natural preference for the people who don't necessarily know, won't necessarily stand up and advocate for themselves. So I think that's a huge part of it. There's also the money thing, as we talked about, the concepts of the quote fresh ideas and all that coded language baked in there too. But there is they want to bring in the young workers so they can exploit the hell out of them and then push all the older workers out so they can get more new cheap labor. It's just what they do. 100%. It's what shareholder capitalism does. And it's not cute and it is illegal. Well, half of that's illegal. Sadly, the other part not so much.
Their why is very funky, but no, I could not agree with you more.
Yeah, it's a real shame, but we're gonna change this. And I do believe that with these new businesses that are popping up out of this involuntary entrepreneur era, we're gonna be able to make the corporate world what we want it to be, at what, very different from a lot of what we're seeing out there. Obviously not all employers, some employers are fantastic. And I will say there are many days, not specific employers necessarily in my career, a couple here and there, but many days where I miss corporate life. I truly do. I miss those Slack groups popping off. I miss all those friendships and working towards a common goal. I miss all of that shit. I really do. But I think there is going to be a new era with better companies. I believe that. And I believe they're the ones that are going to win because the employer market is right now, right? They have us where they want us. They can do whatever they want. But that's going to shift. The pendulum always shifts. And we're going to remember what companies did to us right now when they had all the advantage. It's going to change. And we're not going to forget.
Especially in an era of socials. We didn't have... We weren't able to document this stuff 10 years ago in a way that guaranteed thousands and sometimes millions of women would be warned about this. But
absolutely,
I think of this young woman who sent me a DM. I made a TikTok about it. A few thousand people are going to see that video. And that's one more moment of, oh shit, I guess that wasn't okay that he asked me that. Or, oh my God, do I need to think about that? And I think knowing, to your point, is step one. And I think once enough of us really know, we're able to come together and advocate for what the future of work really looks like. And maybe it doesn't look like letting these companies get away with this shit. But I will say, shout out to the companies. I will never forget when I worked at Intuit, I was 24 running a massive recruitment program. And I remember sitting with my boss saying, I feel so stupid being in my mid-20s telling these 50-plus-year-olds what to do. And she's like, the only reason you should feel stupid is because you feel stupid being in a room. And she's like, that's the only stupid thing you've ever said. And I was like, fuck, you're so good.
That is
awesome. There are good ones out there. We just gotta hunt. We
gotta hunt and we gotta spread the word about the good ones. So I want to amplify the good stuff too. We live in a world where the bad news travels fast, unfortunately, and gets more airtime. But there are good people and good employers out there, and we gotta shout them out. So hat tip to Intuit, I guess, right? They had a good culture. Love that. So I know that this book is fabulous, and I want you to give me your hottest, most blazing take that you think the mid to late career audience needs to know from Clock In.
Oh, I love this question. Okay, bit of a salacious one. I'm a big believer in stop trying to love your job. If you love your job, that is a lovely bonus, and I love that for you. But when we love our jobs, it's a lot like having that childish crush on that person where it's like, oh God, they can do no wrong. Aren't they wonderful? I'll work overtime. I'll skip my birthday dinner. I'll stop taking lunches. Oh, I got laid off. Who am I without you? You can't leave me. And this vision of work is supposed to feel like love is so fucking dangerous. And I would really push people to build a life that they love with a robust social life, hobbies and you time and downtime that feels so wonderful that all of the battery and charge and juice that you get isn't solely reliant on ultimately whether or not payroll decides to keep you, because irreplaceability has not existed for a really, really long time. So let's bring back just liking our job or being neutral.
I love that.
That's fine.
I love that. And I feel like it also lessens the pressure because I can't tell you the worst career advice I've ever received is, quote, follow your passion. Dude, my passion is hanging out with my friends and having a good time and going to baseball games and having a beer. Do you think I can get paid for that? If I can, please let me know.
We've been
But
trying.
I don't think so, right? Like,
we've been working on this.
I'd be into it. But like, no, like your job, be proficient at it, get a paycheck, live your freaking life. No one is going to think about this at their end of days. We know this. People have talked about it over and over and over again. Don't make that mistake. I love that hot take. I think my audience will too. They need to hear it. So thank you, Emily. I could talk to you for literally hours. There's so much more that we didn't even touch. So I'm thinking we're going to have to do a part 2 because I think your story is so compelling. And I think the audience they want to hear more about, like, how did you get this book deal? How did you break out? Like, you had a great place in corporate. You had a really, very supportive boss. I heard about that on one of your podcasts. And it's like, I just feel like that's such a hopeful tale and we need to see it for ourselves. And frankly, I want my audience to share it if they have kids too. Like, this is someone who started relatively recently in her career and has done these exceptional things. Like, you can do great things at any age. And I don't know, I'm really floored by what you've accomplished and I think you're rad. And I'm really grateful you came to share everything with us. So thank you.
The feeling is so freaking mutual. I just had so much fun. So I would absolutely love to. And you're so fantastic at what you do. So I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you, Emily.